Welcome to Life List, a birding podcast.
Hello, everybody, and welcome. We are back at Life List. This is George Armistead. I am here with my co-host, Alvaro Jaramillo. Alvaro, how are you doing?
Hello. Yeah, doing pretty well. How are you?
I'm doing good. I think is I'm still kind of getting over the COVID thing, so I might be sounding a little rough and gravelly this morning, but hopefully that adds character, nothing more.
Well, yeah, one thing you need is more character, George.
Oh, I'm saying that's for sure. But yeah, I'm excited, Alvaro, because we got a good guest today. This is
right.
We haven't done many interviews yet, but we have a guest today who is well known in a variety of capacities. I think of him as sort of the big dog of Colombia birding. There's a lot of big dogs down there, but this guy is a stranger to none, I think, at this point, a co-host on the Birders Show on YouTube, and appeared in the movie The Birders, was prominently featured in that, a beautiful documentary showcasing the birds, culture, and music of Colombia. He appears in Nat Geo's Birdwatching with Fark, a documentary about how birds connect people. This is Diego Calderon, who is a biologist from the University of Antioquia in Medellin. And he's been birding for over 20 years all over Colombia, studying the courtship systems of manakins, the natural history of migratory birds in the neotropics, as well as relationships between galliforms and anseriforms. Today, he does a lot of guiding of bird tours like you and me, Alvaro. And he founded Colombia Birding, and you can follow him at Diego COL Birding on Instagram, right? And Diego's done a bunch of exploring. We're going to talk about some of that and some other stuff today. Diego Calderon, how are you doing today, man?
Oh, I'm very, very good, guys. Being in your company here on your nice podcast. And, it's always great to be seeing you again, mate, and getting to know Mr. Álvaro here face to face for the first time. Es un honor,
Yeah.
Álvaro, hermano.
Sí, un honor poder conversar contigo.
Yeah, let's do this in Spanish. So George is a little,
Sí.
in trouble.
I love it.
We're going to get a new audience, different audience.
Indeed. First episode, half and half.
Yeah, we've been talking about doing an episode in Spanish. I think I could hang. Like I said, I can usually say what I want. It's the comprehension part where I struggle a little bit, but I think I could probably keep up. Especially if I had like a cerveza beforehand. Then it's like it seems like the words really flow easily.
Absolutely.
We could do an online course. Spanish for birders. So
I like that.
The little things that how to say. Where is it? Or how to describe a tree and where a bird is in
Names
Spanish.
Of colors and parts of the bird.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Some of my clients have done little online courses of Español para pajareros before coming. One was by University of Texas, I think.
Wow.
Someone sent me a link. I can send a link and post it here on your comments on social media or something.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, that'd be
awesome. Yeah. We at the Birder Show also have got a lot of requests to do in Espanol episodes, and of course we are having that in mind, and we would like to have one of the birding chaps that do stuff in any of these Latin American countries, and of course subtitles in English, but pleasing our audience in Espanol that is pretty big here in Colombia especially.
Yeah, for sure.
That's cool.
You guys have a big audience and certainly a big presence in Colombia and beyond, so that would be way cool, I think. Yeah, I think it's very cool that you guys are getting each other as lifers right now. You guys are, I feel like, both beasts of birding and have never actually met until today. So that's cool.
It makes me realize that I don't go to the kind of birding shows and events anymore because I'm busy doing all this stuff, putting together tours, but I need to do that more. I used to be at every single one of these events, back in the day.
And to be honest, it's not my dynamics. I've been doing it since 2019 kind of thing, like going to these events because of my presentation, bird watching with FARC. And it was a long time ago that I used to go to the bird fair in Rutland. But, all these North American festivals, I just been hitting them. So you have to come more birding to Colombia. I mean, have you come to Colombia actually?
Me? Yeah. Yeah, and I was involved with the Audubon,
of course,
project. So back, with the Northern Colombia Birding Trail. So I was actually in Colombia a lot for a while, and then again, that dried up. Yeah, one of his backyard birds is one of my most wanted birds in the world: red-bellied grackle.
Mm-hmm.
I've never seen that.
It's a good one.
I've never seen that. No. I've never been to where it is. It's not, I haven't even looked for it yet, but I'm just waiting one day I'll just roll up to your house with a case of beer. And,
That's it. Just stop by, in the road from the airport to Medellin, stop for coffee, leave the beer, and grackles are around, man. They noisy, beautiful beasts. In big groups, cooperative breeders. So they are pretty easy to spot if they are in the area. They are going to be shouting,
Alvaro, how many icterids have you not seen? And there can't be too many.
I don't know. I mean, I don't keep track of things numerically like that, so I just know there's some that are at the list of things I'd like to see.
Yeah, but I mean, as the guy who wrote the book on New World blackbirds, there can't be too many that you haven't seen at this point. I can figure.
Well, there's a bunch. I mean, I've seen most of them, but there's still a good number.
Some of the monotypic rare ones, macrohelios.
Right, and Jamaican blackbird and things like that. If there's a bunch of couple of island things.
It's true. I forgot kind of about some of these. Cool. Well,
yeah.
I know one festival, Diego, you just did was Indiana Dunes. You guys have a good time there?
Oh, indeed. It was my second time. I went last year, and I'm good friends with Juan Diego Vargas from Lifer Nature Tours in Costa Rica. Mm-hmm. Juan Diego's been on a close relationship with Indiana Audubon. So last year he invited me. He said, "Let's go, man, and offer our tours to Colombia." I do his tours in Colombia, and he offers his stuff in Ecuador and everywhere. But this year was super cool because they invited me from the festival to be a headliner, a speaker, and it's such a nice, small festival, I would say. It's very intimate. Everyone knows each other. Last year was a little crazy because it was basically the very first festival to open after pandemic. So people was drooling and getting bananas to get, out of their houses, to see some people, to see some birds. And, I loved it. It was a nice place. All these chaps from, the Indiana Audubon Society and all the friends from Chicago that attend here from Illinois are super cool people. So it was a lot of birds. It was a lot of good birding. It was a lot of good, talks and speakers, some good barbecues, a couple of beers. It was a nice event and makes you realize how different the birding is in the States.
Yeah.
You guys are paying attention to times, seasons when the birds show up, and tomorrow such and such a species are going to show up at my feeders, something that doesn't happen here. We are a little more random here than specifically dating, accounting for the birds like you are in the States, in the North.
Yeah, I was wondering how much your hometown in Medellin there, how obvious bird migration is. I'm sure you get some pretty dramatic hawk flights at times.
Actually, not much the hawk flights because I am above Medellin, 2,500 meters in the mountains. So I see once in a while broadwings, but it's not many as in the lowlands or in Central America. That the river of raptors is pretty crazy. But what I get is I'm almost at the end of the Central Andes, at the northernmost point of the Central Andes. So a lot of the Blackburnians, for example, they are hitting their last days in South America just before leaving to the States in my backyard. So I see tons of beautiful, orange Blackburnian warblers and even singing that, it's pretty rare. But a couple of years ago during pandemic, the Blackburnians were singing. I was like, what is that
No,
in
wow.
the backyard? I've never heard that thing. And it was singing full thing, very, very, totally ready to be at home and to be flirting and having babies.
That's awesome.
Way back when I was banding birds at Long Point, there was this guy, and I've forgotten his name, who was taking cloacal samples of migratory warblers, males, females, and the whole thing. And he was detecting that some of these warblers were mating during migration.
No.
And I remember the highest amount of mating that he detected was Tennessee warbler, which is one of the ones that sings a lot during migration. And you wonder if that has any functional effect or if it's just, hormones gone wild. But I don't think it was ever published. I don't remember seeing, maybe I'm wrong, but that is kind of an entire wow, could that be happening?
Groundbreaking, yeah.
Yeah.
You mean
a lot of these baby warblers should be named with, Hispanic names then, Latin.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember I have this talk I do called Pornithology, the birds and the bees. And one of the stats that I used to kind of try to wow people with was Smith's longspurs had been tallied copulating 629 times in a 6-day period, which, as you can imagine, is more than necessary to get the job done. So they were.
Although they don't have pair bonds, so they're kind of certain males will be doing that, but certain males will be copulating almost nothing. So.
Right. Yeah, it's the sperm competition thing. Yeah.
You don't have to ask, the mannequin, the alpha mannequin, wingman, like how many times he's been successful, man. A sad story.
Yeah. 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 Very supportive, though. Very supportive. Well, one of the things we wanted to talk about, Diego, is you have been involved in a couple of pretty amazing and cool discoveries and also the process of describing a couple new species. And one is the Antioquia wren, and the other is this new ant pitta in the Cali area. Maybe you can profile for folks the stories of those two birds a little bit.
Well, doing a little summary, Antioquia wren is this, big Thryoterus sensulato, type bird that very similar to Rufus and White, to our Nicephorus, etc. And back around 2010, Carlos Esteban Lara, a professor down here, a good birder friend, he comes from the Cauca Valley, that is a lowland elevation area just west of Medellin, with a couple of photos and totally tangled, thinking like, man, what is this? Is this probably a good range extension of Nicephorus wren that is an endemic of the Eastern Andes, probably 500, 600 kilometers away at least. Or is it just Rufus and White wren going lower on elevation? We look at the pictures, and next day next weekend, we are birding down there with a couple of friends and seeing that this thing is singing different, is behaving a little different. The habitat is absolutely different. It's totally dry, thorny, dry forest. And, it's a little bit crazy because this is as Andres Cuervo, one of our friends and co-authors, one of my birding mentors actually would say, this is a piña colada bird. They are in one of the most touristic near Medellin lowland areas, where Medelliners will go to run away, on weekends to go to lowlands, swimming pool, hiking. And, the bird was for sure overlooked by several birders and reported as Rufus and White wren, most likely. So we eventually assembled a nice team and described this thing back in 2012, 2013. And it's one of the few Cauca River Valley dry forest endemics, along with grayish piculate, with apical flycatcher that is always also in other areas of the country. And it's a pretty sensible population, almost 30% of its habitat of the full range was flooded for a hydroelectrical project a few years ago. So you can imagine, the range of this thing is restricted to only Antioquia department. And a little bit of its, a good chunk of its range is totally gone because of water. So it's fortunately a bird that likes to scrub open areas, hedges and stuff like that. So it's not probably not doing bad. But that's the first story.
I like the pina colada bird. And Andres Cuervo is somebody I hear so much about from so many people. He's a good friend of several good friends of mine. So I'm hoping to get my life for Andres sometime soon. But that's a great concept. The pina colada.
You have to. It's a great chap, and he's been very influential on the birding and ornithology careers of a lot of people down here. He's now at the Museo de Ciencias Naturales from Universidad Nacional in Bogotá. He's basically replacing Gary Stiles. So he's still educating a lot of generations of birders and ornithologists down there.
Oh, that's awesome.
Hey, just to give people an idea, if anybody who hasn't been to Colombia is really diverse for many reasons, but one of them is that it has a multiple chains of the Andes. Sort of it breaks up into three. And then you have sort of the mountains, but in between the mountains, you have these valleys, and the two valleys are really different, not only in elevation, but how dry they are compared to adjacent habitats. So that's, people focus on the Andes, but they often don't focus on the negative, which is the valleys that are also really, really important.
The negative relief parts.
Yeah. So you've got all of this going on. That's why, Colombia is so diverse, mega diverse, apart from the latitude and the fact that it has two oceans and
a whole other isolated mountain chain up there in the Santa Martas as well.
Yeah.
Perijá, Macarena, Santa Martas, and people tend to think on the Andes as a singular chain with two slopes, and that's right for most of it. Its length, but when you come here and it splits in three, you have 6 slopes, so that brings up the number of endemics, pretty high.
And then you throw in some Amazonia and some Llanos, and you end up with
Pacific Choco.
Pacific Choco. Yeah, a lot of bird species.
Yeah, and the Choco is really wet habitat for people who haven't sort of thought, that it kind of stretches down to northernmost Ecuador and into
up into Panama.
Yeah.
Actually, one of the wettest, sites on the Chocó is called Lloró. Like it cried, like it cries all the time. The sky cries all the time there. Up to 15,000 millimeters of rain were recorded on a year in Lloró, Chocó.
Oh my God!
That makes it one of the wettest areas in the world, no doubt.
Can you imagine? So a lot of Americans probably don't know the history, but Panama was part of Colombia at one time, right? Before the Panama Canal. Can you imagine if Panama and Colombia were one nation, the mega list?
I like it. I like it.
Huge.
Chavez, ex-Venezuelan president, Hugo Chavez once said, we should reunite La Gran Colombia as a country, getting Venezuela, Panama, Colombia, Ecuador, and a bit of Peru. And of course, like on birding forums and stuff like that, people was like, yeah, we will be unbeatable. And we Colombians were a little like, we are already unbeatable. So why, Panama would be cool, but getting to be, probably a country with what? Almost, 3,000 species kind of thing. Like, it would be crazy.
Yeah, you're busy stealing away all their endemics and adding them to the Colombia list as it is.
Yeah. We can do that more sub-repetitious, going to the borders, birding on the Darien, birding on Putumayo, and trying to sneak in 1 or 2 endemics every time. They also do it, The Ecuadorians got their Choco Vireo and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. This goes on all over. I mean, the Argentinians are stealing Chilean endemics, and Chileans are stealing Argentine endemics. And it is stealing, let's face it.
One of the it's stealing. One of the cool stories is that you were saying that you would like to love to see this red-bellied grackle, Hippopyrrhus. Mm-hmm. That's one of the most amazing, totally velvety black and red endemics that we have is a blackbird, is a nycterid. And the thing is that this is 1 or only two monotypic genera that are endemic to Colombia. The other one being Anthocephala, the blossom crown hummingbirds that they were split in two, but they are still endemics of the country. So Hippopyrrhus is endemic to Colombia. And then the very first time, probably, this is a little confidential story, but it's funny. We were going to Putumayo several years ago to explore. And we were going with a group of friends from Medellin that we always go together. Andrés Cuervo, one of those, and some, birding friends from the Sociedad Antioqueña de Ornitología here locally. And the head of the Universidad Javeriana, that is the author of the Red Book of the Birds of Colombia, the threatened birds, Luis Miguel Rengifo, couldn't go with us, but he was in the chat. So we were talking about the possibilities, range extensions, new birds for the country. And one day he says, oh man, and I was told that Hippopyrrhus, the red-bellied grackles, had been seen almost 20 kilometers away from the border with Ecuador. So we were all like, oh man, we're going to lose our endemic, beautiful genus. So, Luis Miguel, the head of the Red Book of Colombia, says, you should bring a shotgun, man. Don't let that happen. I mean, kind of worth, I tell you.
Very protective.
That's the level. That's the level we're talking about.
National pride, man.
Next level. National pride. Man. Tell us a little bit about the bailador.
Yeah, it's funny because this bailador name is a little something that we don't use. It was like a name that came out in the public, knowledge. But this is a cool story, man. A few years ago, Lina, one of the students from my good friend Gustavo, that is also an ornithologist, Gustavo Londoño in Cali, they were doing some monitoring of nest populations. They have an amazing project evaluating altitudinal changes on nesting on neotropical birds. They've been working in, Manu Road in Peru, Santa Marta here. And one of the places is in Chicayá. That is this beautiful gradient, from the top of the Farallones, the Cali area, above Cali City in the western Andes towards the Pacific, towards the ocean in the Chocó. So it covers a beautiful, range of, Paramo, 3,500 meters above sea level, all the way to zero, with tropical rainforest. And they were, doing a training session, a few days on a site very close to Cali. And Lina just goes, coming one day, and she sees this bird that comes into, she was not on a trail, but on a creek. She was looking for nests going down to the lodge. And she gets this bird jumping in front of her. The bird dances a little bit, shakes, Shakira motion, hips don't lie thing. She gets a little video, a couple of photos, and eventually she comes down and ask the mates there, hey, what's this bird? She was a very young birder then. She wouldn't know even, a genus. She was guessing it was an antbird. And eventually these guys couldn't find it in the book. And one of the guys had birds of Peru there, one of the guys from the States that was a volunteer. So they said, man, this looks like Peruvian antpitta. Ask Gustavo, our boss. They send a message to Gustavo, and Gustavo never sees this message. The message goes undetected on Gustavo's email or WhatsApp or whatever for months, until this guy, the North American guy, asked me, hey, man, do you know what happened with that bird that we detected? Have you heard from Gustavo? Did you know what type of antpitta was? So I eventually can watch these photos, and I said, holy shit, man, this is Peruvian antpitta for Colombia. Next weekend, wow. We are, exploring the area, playing a cocktail of Gralaricula antpittas with Gustavo, my friend. And we got this bird responding, and indeed, we saw it and thought, man, this Peruvian antpitta, no doubt, new for the country. Very interesting because it's also in the opposite slope of the Andes. Peruvian antpitta shows up in Peru and Ecuador in the Amazonian, eastern side of the Andes. And then we start actually to write the range extension note in the field in the afternoons there in the little cabin. It was raining all afternoon, so we were writing our paper. But we eventually, 2-3 days later, come down to civilization and to network, to connection. And we start to check more properly, and this bird has some differences on plumage and the voice. We recorded the voice. The voice was a little different too. And eventually we got Andrés Cuervo in the team. We got some other guys, did some more exploring, look for it. This is only 1 hour from Cali. This is very, very close, actually. That is pretty remarkable. And, the thing indeed is different. So we are almost finishing our description. It's taken more time than we wanted.
Seems like these things always do, these new species. It seems like they...
You can go and listen to your episode with Dan Lane, talking about...
Sometimes they take 20 years, right? Yeah.
There you are. So one of the cool things is that, I mean, we're describing a charismatic brand new species of Grallaricula and Pita. That's pretty remarkable. The last one was ochre-fronted probably 15-ish years ago, 20 years ago, I don't remember, from Peru. But we also realized that this bird is only available in the habitat is the accessible habitat is very vertical walls of rocky faces, in the Farallones. Farallones is this word for these vertical, very cracky rocky faces. And we started a project to feed this ant Pita, at least a couple, so birders could see it, not going bushwhacking and trashing habitat and playing back like crazy. So it's been a little slow get all this into a rolling ball of snow that will work, because it's in public land. It's public land from the municipality that was not designed for tourism. There's been a lot of backs and forths, but eventually we have the bird already eating. A few months ago, actually, I hired a good chap, one of those ant Pita whisperers. And the bird is available. We're just waiting for some improvements on the trails and the dynamics of this Cali administration office to get everything rolling. But hopefully it's going to happen soon. It's not in our hands. It's in the hands of the administration. So, that's a little bureaucratic there. It's a little public.
Yeah.
But eventually it will happen. And, it's a beautiful, beautiful bird.
Wow, that's so cool. Yeah, I was going to say that genus is like, all ant pittas are great, right? Like, there's not a bad ant pitta out there, but Grallaricula ant pittas are a different level. Like, they are ridiculously cute, tiny, like, it's actually I haven't seen that many. And actually the first one I ever saw was scallop-breasted ant pitta, which at the time, which is a good one, And at the time, they had only just recorded its voice for the first time. And I think when we saw it, it was me, John Coons, doing a tour of field guides with another guy, Venezuelan named Pepe Clavijo. And we went, and they had just recorded it. And I think only like maybe, 15, 20 people had seen it at that point. But I remember the thing landed like 6 feet away from me, and I managed to actually get a photo of it. And I was like, terrified, and it was awesome. But I was like, shocked at how cute it was. They're so cute, And I saw the photos of this thing, and I was like, wow, I got to see that thing someday. I really, I haven't seen hooded yet either, but as a genus, Grallaricula is pretty tough to beat.
Yeah, and you've the regular ant pittas that people sort of tend to think of when they're saying ant pittas are bigger, right? And this genus are much smaller. They often will perch on branches rather than always be on the ground. And they do these funny movements too. Like, they will have, not all of them, but some of them have kind of a funky little dance that they do while they sing, or they sit there. And you wonder, why are they doing this? Yeah.
It's interesting because, even before we found the new species, I was talking with Jonathan Miranda, a researcher and good friend from Venezuela. And Jonathan was, preparing a short note on the species of Grallaricula that do the dance. They leave their head totally stationary, like, most of the birds would do, and then shake the body, bow it to the sides. And I've spent hours and hours chasing this new species, These new species by how do you call it, the nickname we have for the ones with it are salsita. Salsa is the music from Cali, and they dance. So we nickname her Salsita. Nice. And I've spent hours following Salsita and seen them, and several other species doing this shake. And I'm able to relate the motion to any specific behavior, any specific situation. Jonathan is not found like any reason. Is commented in a few papers like, oh yeah, and such bird, rusty-breasted, or some of the other Grallaricula's do it, but no one has realized. And one of the cool things is, if you look from behind, all the shaking is made by short strokes of the wings. So it's like, trying to scratch your back, with the right wing, and then your full body shakes, and then using the right wing and the left wing, and the body goes, sideways, shaking all the time.
But they have not correlated it with the behavior as of yet.
Wow. Not at all. There's going to be a time when someone is going to watch a little more careful, or, listen to something special while that's happening, and
Yeah,
Voila.
or they're going to see it under, UV light, and they're going to realize that they have headlights in the back,
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
There you go. Wow.
So that tells you a little bit about how, as I said, in the Victorian times of exploration that we are still living in Colombia, like you just
right
look
outside.
at the mountain range, isolated, and you're going to explore it. If no one has been there, boom, something interesting.
Right outside of Cali, one of the oldest cities in South America, right? It's like
You are.
Yeah, amazing.
I got a question that is totally different. What is a paisa?
A paisa or a bandeja paisa? Actually,
well, we're going to get to la bandeja paisa. That's
actually,
secondary question.
the nicknames, the casual nicknames for the people in Colombia, like anyone from the coast would be a costeño, of course, Anyone from Bogota area would be a rolo. And actually, I don't know where the word rolo comes. And anyone from this coffee region, comprehended in between like Medellin, Manizales, and Pereira, like the central Western Andes core coffee area, we are all paisas. And it comes from the word paisano, brother or someone from the same town. There is always this little bit of discussion and a little of hard feelings in a nice manner in between rolos and paisas.
A little bit of rivalry,
A little bit.
And how come Cali is not they're not paisas, they're not rolos?
They are caleños, and they are more lowlanders than the paisas, and of course than the rolos. They are, from high elevation. But if you have all the department of Valle del Cauca, which Cali is the capital from, the north of Valle del Cauca is coffee area. And you will be in places like El Cairo, birding, and it's like if you were in the middle of coffee area, beautiful, picturesque towns with Republican architecture, and they consider themselves paisas, even they're from Valle del Cauca. Is this, I would say, more related to the coffee growing culture area that comprehends all these departments and cities.
And I mean, somebody who hasn't, if a listener hasn't been to Colombia, it's good to get the map out and kind of look and see. Bogota is sort of, I wouldn't say in the center; it's a little west of center, but it's in the Andes.
The little east of center,
I mean, Medellin is to the northwest, and then Cali is to the southwest, right? So you have the three kind of creating a triangle. And then there's the Caribbean, Cartagena, Barranquilla. But that sort of triangle of, when you look at the big cities, important cities, they're distant enough from each other that they have different culture, different histories, but they're close enough to each other that I can see sort of like rivalries, or historical kind of situations happening. Like, for example, what rum you drink depends on where you're from sometimes,
absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely. And we are pretty regionalists here on this country, in Colombia. And of course, when you have Bogota is 2,500 meters above sea level, huge city, people is a little bit more shy or recluded or more, in the big city dynamics. And you come to Cali or Medellin, there are smaller cities, a little lower elevation, people is a little more festive, saying hello in the streets to everyone. I mean, the differences probably get a little more marked on the rivalry there, a little too funny sometimes. I mean, in some cases, of course, it could be unbearable for some people, I guess, like anywhere in the world, countries that make fun of other countries and stuff like that. Yeah. But in general, Colombia is a country of countries. All these regions are so different, like Nariñenses, Pastusos in the south, in the border with Colombia, completely different, planet than the coast, that the Guajiros in the north,
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And this bandeja paisa is quite the thing. Like, bandeja means platter, so it's the platter of the paisa people, right? And it's essentially anything you can fit in this big bandeja. It's chicharrones, fried pork rinds, and plantain,
and plantains, and ground
rice.
Beef. And it's basically putting everything that makes it more colorful, and supposedly that gives you energy to be on the field all day long. a little too big,
Yeah.
a little too big for the taste of most of our visitors, actually, and for some of us.
Yeah,
I was
I've certainly
impressed.
I've certainly had some meals down there where, like, you know, you're with the group and the plate of food arrives and people are just like, oh my god, like, how are we supposed to do anything else after this?
Yeah, it's a good one to share, actually. I want the paisa.
Yeah, it's a beautiful place to eat, and yeah, I mean, one of the things I wanted to ask you about a little bit more was your hometown there, Medellin, and what a great place. I had occasion to I did a birding trip there a couple of years ago, and at the end I was like, you know what, I'm just going to tack on like 3 nights in Medellin and just hang out. And I just went around by myself and ate at like nice restaurants and hung out with a couple friends and took the street art tour, which was amazing. Just walking the streets of Medellin there and the views and the murals, many of which feature birds. Birds are so prominent in all the street art. You so many murals of birds, vermilion flycatchers and toucans and hummingbirds. And I was really struck by that. And I thought, this is something I feel like birders should know about, actually. Like, if you're going to come to, if, like, you know, a lot of people fly in and out of Medellin for birding trips, and tacking on a day or two to check out town there. You know, what would be your recommendations, Diego, for folks that wanted to see a little bit of the city?
Oh, absolutely. Medellin is, has this very interesting history. One of the most violent, areas, cities of the world back, 20, 15 years ago, with all the narco story and other, traditional issues that we've been, passing by and having a good change. And Medellin offers basically a view of that. You can go and glimpse all these, for example, murals. You go and see the Comuna 13, one of the favelas, let's say, here in the city, and you can actually witness how these areas have migrated from being, one of the mafia and drug trafficking centrals to be like a social and educational hub for a lot of guys, a lot of people without many possibilities, many options, many choices in life. And now there are, like social groups, NGOs, locals offering, dancing classes and painting classes, and a lot of art is probably shaping a lot of these kids. So going to see these parts of the city is a must. Of course, we have like Botero Museum, one of the famous artists, painters and sculpture guys from the world that it was from Medellin, and a lot of his art is here in the city on a special museum downtown. But one of the cool things is also that Medellin is being gaining probably a little bit more attention because now we have, around the city, you could go to a lot of places birding, 1 hour, 2 hours from the city. But inside the city, people only would do like a quick visit to see red-bellied grackle and yellow-headed manakin at La Romera Reserve and keep going, either north, south, to the Magdalena, Cauca Valleys. But now we have the Antioquia brosfinch, only 1 hour from the city.
Oh, wow.
Lost bird, was supposedly extinct, and it was rediscovered 3-4 years ago. So now there is one more, specific thing to be one night here to go and see this bird. It's relatively piece of cake here, northwest of the city, and that has made that a lot of people takes time to do a little bit of sightseeing or little graffiti tour or the new Pablo Who, that is a new tour about Pablo Escobar's story, and redefining and showing a more decent story about what happened in the narco days in the city, So Medellin is gaining more attention also in between the history and the birds, and I find that pretty neat that people interests more on the real story of this area.
Yeah, I loved Comuna 13 and the graffiti tour and the food and like going around and you just see people. There's music everywhere and there's there's like break dancing and like it's just it's such a vibrant, rich city. I envy you for living right in that area. It's such a cool spot.
Yeah, one of the things that really I always think about is, especially in terms of the ornithology, the birding and so forth, and lots of other things that happen in Colombia, is that for a while you were isolated from the rest of the world. I mean, the other than the flow of money and drugs, for a long time, the people not that many tourists would go to Colombia. Collaborations were less than they are now. How is it that Colombia is kind of was able to, produce not only so much great ornithological work during a time when it was sort of isolated, and even music, like just
everything.
Crazy, everything. It's almost, I wonder if it was like a reaction to the fact that, you were isolated from the rest, but it's kind of there's a lot of ornithological work, ornithologists, birders in Colombia. Like the whole scene is huge compared to a lot of Latin American countries.
It's pretty unique. It's pretty endemic, actually. We as you said, we were totally isolated from the research, from the birding world, from the natural history world. You would check any paper on systematics of any group of neotropical birds produced, anywhere from the 80s to almost 2005, 2010, even sometimes, and you would find on the sampling dots on the localities a big gap, and that was Colombia. And that was also pretty interesting because in Colombia, if you were sampling Rufus and Pitas all over the Andes, you get, a few species here and there, but the subspecies in Colombia were a ton. So this is where the things were interesting. And that's probably one of the causes that the Colombian ornithology has grew up a little isolated, but also very strong. We got, we started with the Lasalle brothers back, in almost 100 years ago, being all over Colombia. They funded some of the, like local society, Sociedad Ornitológica, the Antioqueña de Ornitología here in Antioquia, was founded by Marco Antonio Serna, one of the Lasalle brothers. And we actually, when we described Antioquia Wren, we named it in honor to Marco Antonio Serna. We call it Triophilus Sernae. And a lot of these guys created an atmosphere of academy that was also infiltrated a little bit by the early explorers from the Museum of Natural History from New York and the Academy of Sciences. And, a lot of the specimens that were taken in Colombia went all the way to collections in Europe and the States. So a lot of information was there, but the country was basically unreachable for scientists, with our, very, very sorrowful and shameful war on drugs in the last years, 60 years of conflict. And then I think that the neotropical ornithologists here just proved that we were good enough without the influence of North American, European universities and researchers coming, that we could produce a lot of good work. So we got the influence of a lot of private and public university guys, just living the dream and making up their labs and getting students and getting people to do research. And it was a nightmare to send samples of DNA or to get loans from samples of museums because, we were very isolated to the world. But eventually this made a very strong community, and even in ecology nowadays is happening. And you see that the ornithological community, the local community, is big enough to be compared to the Argentinian and to the Brazilian one, even Brazil being a huge country with a lot more researchers. But a lot of high quality people has emerged from here. And nowadays that the things are more open, more accessible, with the cease of the conflict, we are getting a lot of attention, not only in birding. Of course, you as birders and people listening to us would acknowledge that Colombia has been that gap. I've got guys coming birding with me on tours with the Birds of Colombia, Hilty book from 1986, totally worn and totally wet and totally used in the field. And they said, man, I went birding to Ecuador with this copy. I went birding to Venezuela. I went birding anywhere. Now is the time to use it in Colombia, even if it's a very old, not updated book, the first version. And for the research, the same. A lot of people coming to do their undergrad, their postgrad projects here. So it's been making it even more strong. But it's been pretty unique. We've been evolving as our own unique society here of researchers and birders, and that's I would say pretty unique for the Americas.
Yeah, maybe it was weirdly enough, a benefit to be isolated for a while, and not have to rely or feel like things had to be led from the outside. I mean, you start thinking of other countries in Latin America where it's been led from the outside, from North American or
absolutely
European.
You mentioned it, I think, on Dan Lane's episode. Like, it's not only like one Bolivian or Peruvian in the description of the Heliotraupis, I think. And in Colombia, it's probably the opposite. A lot of these guys like Andres Cuervo, Daniel Cadena, Gustavo Londoño, they were very eager, very precocial. So they were like boom, 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 producing and really looking for the rare things, along with some of the visitors, of course, from Europe and the States. But a pretty own and unique, very, very Colombian energetical community is being behind all this research, and that's one of the strengths for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I do feel, having only visited in the last 10 years or so, I find that Colombians are super welcoming, super social, and I often wonder if part of that is that there was such isolation for so long that people do value the time now. People value the opportunity to interface with a whole bunch of different folks, and I imagine you're right, Al, that the evolving ornithology there would have had to have had this core strength because it evolved kind of more organically in a way there. So that's an interesting aspect.
And also the fact to realize that you have a very unique, complicated country, biogeographically and nature-wise, and that no one is studying it. No one is coming. It's like, okay, man, we got to do the work. If no one is coming to sample here and to understand what's happening with all these variation, we have to do it ourselves. So
all this uniqueness,
schools here, yeah. Absolutely.
Hey, George, we usually start out with sort of what's been going on, what we've been seeing, and we dove right in because we were really excited about Diego. And what I've been seeing recently is I always forget that the hummingbirds nest. They arrive early, but they start nesting kind of late. At least the Allens. This is at least in my yard.
Mm-hmm.
But
is this why you were looking? I saw you. You were fixated not on the screen there for a while. I was wondering what was going on.
Exactly. So I have this big, window, and it gets a little spider webs all around it, and I don't clean it because I know that this time of year, the Allen's hummingbirds come and pick out spider webs to make their nest, and it's been kind of constant. And it could be a second brood for all that because they've been around for a while. But I haven't seen it until this week that they've been like making a nest. I don't know if people know that a lot of hummingbirds use expansive materials like spiders' webs that are flexible yet have strength, so that when the little eggs are in there, it's a small cup, but when the babies start growing, they actually increase the size of the cup, and it's a perfect kind of like solution to their situation. It's like they're getting bigger and bigger, and you don't want to have a huge nest to start out with. The little female hummingbird would be sitting there not knowing what to do with herself, so it expands, and the spider's webs are key. So I've been watching that for the last while.
I was wondering what you were looking at.
No rare birds,
Yeah, I thought maybe you had another prairie falcon or something. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I know, like that time. And then I've also been kind of marveling at the spring rarities in Ontario. They had a marsh sandpiper.
Oh yeah,
first for Canada, and then just a few days ago, hepatic tanager.
Yeah, that one knocked me socks off. I didn't, and there's previous records for the province as well, which shocked me. Like that wasn't even the first one for Ontario.
Was it? I thought it was the first for Canada. Maybe I'm totally wrong.
I thought they said it was like the second or the. I think they said it was like the second or third. Maybe it was the second or third for Canada. But I was like shocked that there were any previous records there at all.
I mean, there are some really weird things, like Scots Orioles and phinopeplas that have shown up in Ontario from that region. But it was shocking.
That is
actually
cool.
The sandpiper was less shocking to me, even though it caused more waves. Because marsh sandpiper is just a real vagrant that it's found all over the place.
Those tringates seem like they can turn up just about anywhere. And but the hepatic was more shocking to me as well, actually. Yeah, even though it came from less distance.
That's funny part of the birding out there that is so different to here, man. Like, we get rarities and vagrants, but like we found buff-throated totally tyrant, new for the country, down south in Putumayo a long time ago exploring. And there's no twitching, like the bird is going to be there. The bird has been there forever. It's just lack of sampling. It's not like a rare vagrant crossing the border. It's totally different energy and behavior from birders.
Now, it is different when you get to Chile. Vagrants are huge. Like there are lots of things that show up that are lost. And
these temperate migrants.
Temperate migrants, and because you have situations like the desert, or the highlands in the desert, or these random little pockets, you could in fact go and have a trip at the right time of the year and almost expect you're going to see a vagrant, or at least look for them. But the number of vagrants since people have really started, since birding's become a more common thing in the last 15 years, has been astounding. The things that people are finding, even like oil birds, multiple in random places, like roosting in garages in the desert, some mechanic finds his bird in there. Or
that's crazy.
Multiple things like that, warblers, and things that are just totally unexpected. Northern fulmar or European redstart out in the islands. Just crazy. I think the only thing comparable is Brazil. The islands, the islands off northeast Brazil that have some real vagrant, wacky stuff from Europe that show up. But it's interesting that I'm sure vagrants occur in Colombia, but you're looking at several thousand other species, and you might not even register. It's not so easy to find.
Yeah, that's a lot of land.
It's a lot, and you could see that the all these new birders, a lot of people actually, even without binoculars, just a camera, like photography has been very important on the growing of the local, birding community. And a lot of these people were reporting a lot of, novel information on ranges of our birds, like a lot of range extensions, a few vagrants, a few warblers and stuff. But it was the power of the participative social, science, e-birding. A lot of these people, and then a lot of the filters, with reviewers were like, what? And it was that. A lot of people just going like, oh yeah, I took this photo of, this yellow-headed brushfinch, new for Antioquia, 100 kilometers north in the Central Andes, then 100 kilometers west in the Western Andes. And it's been so important, the growing of the local ornithological and birding community. Just adding up all this information on novel information.
Yeah, it's amazing. Al was talking about how much it's grown in Chile, and it's grown, birding has grown so much here in the States as well. But I wonder what it's like for you, who's been, in Colombia. You've seen this thing really evolve over time, and I guess my first trip there, I was amazed. I went to the Cali Bird Fair, and we're talking about going back next year. In fact, I'm talking later today with your co-host Chris Bell about maybe doing something for the Bird Fair next year. So I hope folks will stay tuned for that. But like the first time I went there, I was shocked at just compared to so many countries I've been to in Central and South America, at what a big birding community there is, and I gather that's a fairly recent thing, right? It's and so many were so young. There was hundreds of people at that Cali Bird Fair, And I know there's a whole bunch of other bird fairs. Like when you started out birding, how many people did you know that were doing it? And, how has that changed to the present time?
It was not small, but it was all mostly related to academia. It was all the ornithological societies, all the biology and ornithology schools, and the events were only the National Birders Meeting. It was the Encuentro Nacional de Ornitología. But then it started to grow so much, I would say, in the last years with security, people being able to move around and to travel more, and also the fact that ProColombia started to do a good job on advertising the country outside, and that also resounded inside. So for a lot of people, we suddenly were the country of birds. A lot of people didn't know that we were the top country with a bird list in the world with almost 2,000 species. And that also created this internal proud thing. So people were exploring more the birds while they were traveling and just taking photos and not even being per se birders having lists. But then you would say that it comes, in the last years, the participative science with the global big day made a big, big, big impact because a lot of people wanted to participate on this race. People saw it as a race to see more birds, the highest number of birds in a single day. And we discovered, man, that we had birders on every corner of the world. On every single little town, there was a professor with a school teacher with their kids going birding for the weekend and producing data and getting it reported into eBird for that global big day. So it's changed dramatically. It's changed dramatically with the amount of regular people, non-PhD students, non-professors, just, lawyers and doctors and just people, as mundane people, as we would call it, Christians, just going birding. And it's pretty interesting and fun. It's pretty interesting and fun. I think it showed us how powerful the amount of work, in this case, watching birds from regular people, non-trained people is. And the community is growing exponentially.
Yeah, it's so cool. It's so cool. Like I mean, it's not at all the same thing, but here in Philadelphia, even I remember, like I went, 10 years ago, if there was a good bird in Philadelphia, it was because like one of the three of us that went birding in Philadelphia found it, and now there's so much good stuff being found all the time. You can't even keep up with it. It's like, in a way, you get kind of frustrated because there's so much more to look for and see, and you feel like you're missing out a little bit, actually. But in another way, it's just brilliant because there's so many more people involved, and I do think digital photography is just like blew the doors open. I think that was just a massive, massive factor.
I think the fact that eBird and sort of these participatory, citizen science projects will have in North America specifically, we can sort of see it already in Latin America, is the average age of birders is going to go down. Birders have always been in North America, 60 and up has been the common, in terms of age, and it's going to drop down. Latin American birders usually are in, I would say students to about 45, that's the main group, in fact, by the time you get to 60, that's usually the sort of university professors that have been around for a while. And I'm just, looking at patterns here, but very interesting that it's a more young crowd all over Latin America, and it will be here too.
A couple of things help there, Albert. Like, if you think that tourism is one of the main important, economy sectors in the country, and that we are the country of birds, and that a lot of young guys know their areas, know their birds, they are looking forward to a job in tourism, being a local guide or being a local operator, being the local family that feeds an ant pit or feeds the birds, and people come here and they sleep at your place, and you gain, good income from birds. That is made a lot more young people going into birding, of course. And also, one of the cool things that I grasp from our, more academical background as an, ornithological and birding society is totally seen while Global Big Day. We not only see the highest number of birds that is almost expected because, we have almost 2,000 species to go and look, but we are like the second or third or fourth country that submits the highest number of checklists. That means we are doing the job on a more specific, more fine detailed tune way, and not just sending like full huge, lists for 12 hours and, 120 species, but doing it on different habitats, on different locations. So I think the homework of understanding that not only the amount of data, the amount of birds, but the quality of the data is useful. It also is very Colombian. And you go and check the results of Global Big Day. I haven't done it on the last 3 years. I haven't been actually playing Global Big Day on the last 3 years after done it like super crazy from 2016 to 17 to 2020, is that we are like submitting huge amount of lists just below the States and Canada and probably Australia. So that also tells you a bit about, a lot of people interested, but a lot of people interested in good quality that, is pretty meaningful actually.
Yeah, a tremendous amount of effort and strategy goes into it, I know, in Colombia. And I remember back when like Peru used to kind of be the titan in terms of the species for a few years there. And they got knocked off their perch by Colombia. And you guys basically haven't looked back since then in terms of the species.
I mean, if you have the people aligned, going to specific places, getting specific birds, all the rest is just having fun and seeing the normal stuff for the day,
Mm-hmm.
We need to start making more categories, kind of like almost like the Olympics, just add more sports to the Olympics. So we need to have
exactly.
biggest list for a landlocked country. We need to have biggest maybe list for a small temperate country. We need
percentage of total species seen, not only totals.
Percentage of total species, or number of species per
hour
unit area of the country.
I think per hours per single hour would be is a fun one. Like I used to do that as a kid. Me and my buddy Chris Witt, we would like go out and try to be like, all right, you go out for an hour, I'll go out for an hour. Let's see who comes back with more species. I think that could be
the big hour.
Yeah, exactly.
The hour of power.
Exactly, man. Yeah. Yeah.
For the busy, for the busy person who's a birder, it's just like none of this big year stuff. Big hour, maybe a big 5 minutes.
Exactly. It does involve some strategy. You got to pick where you got to pick your spot wisely, and it is kind of a fun
big seat.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Big hour on a bicycle. That's probably the way to do it. Cover a lot of ground.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
And just listen.
Yeah.
That actually relates, and I love it, to the fact that birds will please us all, no matter how we approach them and how we see them and how we enjoy them, listing, not listing, photographing, not photographing, seeing details, seeing quick, understanding, natural history and biogeography from them, or just for the simple aesthetics. That's the charm of birds. They will please you anyhow you want to enjoy them.
They give us an awful lot. They really do. Yeah.
Yeah. It's really the most versatile pastime that you can have. I think there's something for everybody in terms of birding, and I think one of the key things for people who've been doing this for a long time is to actually expand your mind as to how birding can happen, so we can bring in more people to this joy of watching birds,
Exactly.
So, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Being a little bit of a pimp, getting people into birding pimp.
Pushing birds, yeah. A bird pusher. You're one of those bird pushers, aren't you?
It's a good job. It's a good job, getting people into it.
It's true.
I'm not saying no.
Yeah. So we go right. You're the
Let's get started. Drive safely.
Oh.
I was checking some times here.
Right.
Sorry. And then this thing was talking to us.
I was like, wow, you don't look like you're driving.
No.
It's funny that Diego gets his directions in English. I mean, Why does
Actually,
he get
yeah,
directions in
cell phone
Spanish?
is
He
totally.
doesn't trust it in Spanish. It's like,
Cell
oh
phone
no,
is,
they're going to take me somewhere else.
some of these funny automatic voices in Spanish are from Spain, so that sounds a little weird for us. So I just
That's
keep
weird.
the ones in English.
Castellano. I have long said I would love to have Sofia Vergara giving me directions on my phone. I keep hoping that they'll have her voice.
That's not going to happen, man. That's not going to happen.
Seems unlikely. It does seem unlikely. Yeah.
So yesterday I started watching this TV. We were watching these TV shows, like a murder mystery thing, and it's in Spanish or it's from Spain or whatever. And I'm like, what? This accent is so weird, And I realized eventually it wasn't actually properly Spanish. I could understand it, but it was Galician, and I'm thinking like, oh, gee, no wonder I thought as my hearing aid thing was going off. Why can't I not? What's going on? It's like they're kind of half Portuguese, but anyway, there's a lot. Yeah, there's a lot of variation within Spanish itself and accents, and let alone languages related to Spanish. It's not all one thing.
Don't get a Rolo from Bogota and a Paisa from Medellin to talk. There are going to be different worlds. Absolutely.
Yeah. Or a Chileno.
Yeah.
I would encourage folks to check out Diego's your Nat Geo talk, the bird watching with FARC, and that's a talk you've given at you maybe have coming up elsewhere. I don't know if you've got, I think you did. Was that the talk you gave at Indiana Dunes Festival?
That's the one, and is nowadays named "How Birds Connect People," Birding with FARC. And I've reached, I don't know exactly, I haven't done numbers in a while, but like 4,000 people around. It's a presentation about getting ourselves out of our bubbles, out of our comfort zones, and thinking on the Colombian conflict and how that touched all of us here, no doubt, and how we can, face it and embrace it on different ways. And, we've been a very polarized country like everywhere else in the world. We've been, voting 50% for everything. And it was no difference here when we voted about the peace deal back in 2016. We actually voted no by like 0.001%. The no to the peace deal won. We as a country said no. So we basically eventually got the peace deal passed by Congress with this is the big agreement, the peace deal with FARC, the oldest guerrilla group in the world. And, I had a little bit of curiosity how a normal, citizen like me would be able to offer something. And, I had my superpower. I had the tools. My superpower is that I was kidnapped by FARC in 2004 while trying to do a bird expedition in the Perijá Mountains in between Colombia and Venezuela. And nowadays, after the peace deal, I've had the privilege to go birding again with FARC ex-combatants, with the guys that signed the peace deal. And they are now looking for opportunities and looking for jobs. And they do know about nature and birds and medicinal plants. So having, that circle kind of closed, and having those tools in my hands, I designed this talk, this presentation, Birding with FARC, that I've been sharing, with Colombians especially, and a little bit around the world, Spain and Uganda, the States now. Pandemic came, so actually I missed a few opportunities there. But the next one is going to be end of July, beginning of August, I don't remember exactly, on Ecuador, in the Reunión Ornitológica Ecuatoriana de Ornitología. And that's the idea, getting people a little uncomfortable with love, thinking out of their bubbles and seeing the Colombian conflict from a different perspective, that, being lightweight of emotional baggage is much better.
Yeah.
No doubt. That's we're watching with FARC. And as you said, you can watch a short National Geographic documentary that is called Bird Watching with FARC. It's open there on YouTube for everyone to enjoy.
Yeah, I've watched it a couple times. It's really, it's pretty powerful, man. And I got to see you give this talk as well when we had the ABA event in Bogota. And it's a great story. It's a great message. Definitely encourage people to check that out on YouTube. And yeah, hope we'll get you up in this region at some point soon to give that talk as well. I'd love to get you into the Philly region.
Absolutely. I'm scheduled for some other festivals there, like Morro Bay in California.
Oh, that's a great one. I got to speak with that one. Yeah.
With Cornell, with Chris, we need to set it up again. I was traveling there in April, pandemic year, so we had to postpone the thing. But yeah, the idea is sharing the talk with a lot of people, changing the perspective that they have on Colombia. Also, like stereotypes rule, and the talk is useful for that.
Yeah. Morro Bay will be a lot of fun. Alvaro and I have both been to that one, and it's a great group of folks and a great festival. People should definitely consider going to see you there at Morro Bay Birding Festival. Definitely recommend that one.
And go out on the boat trip. So
yeah, are you managing the boat trip, Alvaro?
Well, I might be there, but I don't. Yeah, I haven't. We haven't thought that far ahead, I think.
Gotcha. Okay. I thought maybe you had plans.
At least I haven't. They probably have.
Yeah. One thing I was hoping to discuss before we let you go here, Diego, is neomorphous ground cuckoos.
Woohoo.
I had the pleasure of being on the Birder Show with you and Chris a while back. Amazing show. Folks need to check it out if they haven't already. But my bad luck with neomorphous ground cuckoos was on full display there. And I've taken a bit of a beating since then from folks because these things have popped up in Costa Rica superbly for people to see. And I wasn't able to get down and see those. I know you were able to go. And yeah, like now it seems like almost every time one pops up, people are like, check it out, George. You got to go see it. There's one there. You're missing it again. And it's like, I'm like, oh man, I got to figure out a way to get away. But I know you went to see the one in Costa Rica. Have you had any recent success? I know there's been some more ground cuckoos documented fairly recently.
Yeah, this is a nice topic. These are the ghosts of the rainforest. You think on cuckoos being relatively showy and noisy. The ground cuckoos, like road runners, they are in the ground all the time running. They love to follow army ants. The ants are, praying for everything in the forest and anything that flushes. Snakes, scorpions, spiders. The birds are behind, ant birds and ground cuckoos, etc. So the thing is that seeing a ground cuckoo is a lifetime event. You can't be birding forever in the neotropics and not connecting with one, and that's been the case for a lot of people. So It's been fun because I even started a little post on Facebook where we tag a lot of people, and we had a lot of people commenting. Actually, I just checked it like a second ago, and this post has 347 comments from a lot of people reporting their ground cuckoo sightings. And there are basically 5 species of ground cuckoos, like recognized, because there are splits, going to happen. And there's one species, as you mentioned, there is the easy one, the rufous vented, that I actually flew.
Relatively easy.
I mean, the easier of them all. Actually, if you check rufous vented ground cuckoo in that post, is being seen by 34 of the people commenting there, while the rare species, like scaled and red-billed, they're only being seen by 5 people. So that tells you, the amount of time in the field that you have to spend and the amount of luck to get to connect with one of these species. So there has been one relatively recent happening, and is banded in Ecuador. Banded, we share it with Ecuador. It's only the Chocó, the humid area of Colombia and Ecuador in the Pacific, towards the Pacific in the west. And it's a tough beast to find, to connect with. There are some sightings in Colombia, in the south, in Pangan, but you probably have to go and spend like 2 weeks there to have a little shot of it. But in Ecuador, in the Mindo area, there has been one of these neomorphous banded ground cuckoos coming to moths in the morning. There is like lights and a moth trap where, some birds come early morning. And 2 months ago, it was happening almost every day for a couple of weeks. There was some twitching going on, some people flying from the States and detouring in their Ecuadorian itineraries, trying to get some extra time to go and see him. I didn't go to that one a few years ago, like 3-4 years ago, when the first time it showed and it was being fed by some guys in a reserve there. I thought myself like, yeah, I live in Colombia. I will eventually should see Neomorphus radiolosus, the banded ground cuckoo in Colombia. Man, I was probably, trusting my luck, and it's not been the case yet. So I actually might detour a little bit in July to go and see it. And it's, Neomorphus are these birds that really awake that neotropical curiosity of birders probably at its maximum. Is like seeing a ghost. Is like receiving a gift from nature. Is like a friend says, he also says this about the spiny rats in the Andes. You don't go and see them. You don't go and chase them. They decide when to be seen, and they come and offer themselves to you as a gift. So that's what happens with Neomorphus. They drive the curiosity and the romantic curiosity of a lot of neotropical birders, and not many people have seen them all. So no one have seen them all. So that's.
I can't say I've had bad luck with them because I've never actually looked for one.
There you are.
So I've never seen one, but I've never, so I just figured one day something will happen somewhere. But to me, these birds are a little like the African Picathardes, although harder. In fact, Picathardes are mythical, but they nest in very specific situations. So you can actually go and see them reliably if you put in the right time.
The rockfowl.
I have seen, rockfowl. And I have seen Picathardes. That's a story, actually. Because that was not, it was kind of one of those like gifts from the birding gods. It wasn't like it was even in the cards. That's for another episode. And there's something very similar, like really low density, big showy bird, ground dwelling. You would think, you see it in the book, you would think, oh, well, that's going to be easy to find, big, huge thing like a chicken, but it's not easy to find at all, these ground cuckoos. And I used to remember seeing them in the birds of Venezuela originally and thinking, well, I guess I'll see one of those one day, and never happened so far.
and the funny thing, and it makes them more drooling for birders, is that when they happen to be following army ants, they're totally easy and they're not shy. They will walk in between the people, look at the people. They just behave like little puppies. And that's the total contrasting thing, like one of the toughest neotropical birds to find, to connect with. But if you're at the right spot with the right army ant swarm, there will be 2 hours with you, just, happily praying there and giving you a show. So it's either everything or nothing with them. And I think that's one of the things that drives birders a little crazy about them. Like the day I find my, Neomorphus ground cuckoo is going to be cool. It's going to be, a good observation, but you have to suffer for it.
Yeah, it is. It does. It seems like they're nowhere or they're at your feet. It's like, and mostly they're nowhere. It's like, yeah, it is. Exactly. And I think you're right, Al. Picathardes, the rockfowl, they very much occupy kind of the same niche mentally, I think, as well, for among birders that go for these kinds of things. Like they kind of are in the same brain space. And I have not been to the right areas to connect with those Picathardes, but someday, I hope.
Amazing day. They look unreal. Those waterfalls.
Crazy. Well, guys, Diego, thank you so much, man. Before we sign off here, is there anything you want to let folks know about that you have coming up, or where they can connect with you?
Well, everyone is welcome to check my social media, as you recommended at the beginning, is Diego COL Birding, COL from Colombia, and The Birder Show. We are on any of the social media channels and YouTube. And, like trips happening, some clients coming back to Colombia. I have a trip to Bolivia, with Gina Nichols and Steve Bird from Sunrise. And it seems that it is becoming, again, a little more normal. We are not, pre-pandemic levels of tourism, but it's becoming, again, a little busy for everyone here. So more than more than cool, man, because a lot of people, locals here were in need of the tourism happening and going on. And it's great to see the birders returning back. So that's it. That's my next few days with some tours and a trip to Cuba, going with my girlfriend on a camper van. I've never been to Cuba, so I hope to see some of the endemics there and get to see some natural places. And that's it. Any recommendations for Cuba?
Alvaro can give you some pointers there. He knows it as well as anybody.
Offline, I can give you some thoughts.
I will bother you then, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, thanks so much, Diego. Really appreciate the time today. And thanks everybody for listening. And we'll look forward to being back with another episode soon. Cheers, everybody.
Cool.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Ciao.